Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Gentech PC product showcase. In today's full-length featured review, we'll be going over the new iteration of the Aorus 17. So we'll start things off with our unboxing so you can see what you're going to get if you decide to order one of these for yourself. And we're going to be doing what we call a double boxing here. So we have the outside cardboard box, and then inside of that we're going to have the more flashy product box. This keeps it a little bit more low-key during shipping, and of course also protects your items from getting any kind of damage because the extra box offers extra protection. So while we continue with the unboxing, let's talk about the Aorus 17. If you haven't heard of this brand before, they have been around for a while, they are reputable, and of course they're using the same hardware and parts as everybody else when it comes to Nvidia and Intel. So there's not a whole lot of reason to necessarily always buy the names you're familiar with. Sometimes it's worth looking outside and looking at new alternatives. So Aorus would be up there with Asus and MSI and all the other big players in the gaming laptop category. And that's what this particular laptop is going to be about. It's a 17-inch form factor laptop, so you get the large screen real estate, and it has all of the hardware components that make it a really great either a gaming laptop or a performance machine for someone who needs a lot of compute power. So as we crack open that interior box, you can see that we have large foam padding on the outside of the laptop as well as a sleeve over the laptop. So this keeps it very well protected during shipping from any kind of shock damage or crushing, and that sleeve means that it's not going to get scratched up. Now we have two more boxes on each side here, and that's going to contain our power adapter. So as far as the power adapter is concerned, your wattage will be the same no matter where you get the laptop shipped to, but the cable that plugs into the wall will be different depending on your region. So this is going to be configured for North America power, and here's a close-up of the specs of that power adapter so you can see how much wattage it has. And while we try to get that in focus, for those who couldn't see it, it's a 330 watt power adapter. Now you do have multiple configuration options available for this laptop. You can get it with a Core i7-9750H, which is what we have in this particular one that we're demoing. That's a 6-core CPU. Or if you go for the top end model, they have a Core i9-9980HK, and that's a full-blown unlocked 8-core CPU. That paired with the Nvidia RTX 2080 means you pretty much have the top of the line specs for any laptop out there. And that's why you need not just a 330 watt power adapter, but two of them. This also gives us a good time to make a segue into the way that this laptop is a little bit different than most of the others that we see that have the 17-inch form factor and the dual power supplies. Usually they're made to be dedicated machines that sit at a desk, or people travel with them when they're not going to be moving them back and forth constantly. In this case, the Aorus 17 can be taken out without all the extra cumbersome nature of the power supplies because it has a 94 watt-hour battery. So even with all of that hardware power, if you charge it up and take it out with you for the day, it'll actually give you a pretty decent amount of battery life. And here's just a quick recap of everything that came out of the unboxing. So if you're ready, we're ready. Let's go ahead and get going with the rest of the review. Between your screen and your keyboard, you're going to have a nice oversized cleaning cloth, so make sure you keep that. Now during shipping, it made sure that there was no scratches to the screen, but now that you own it, you can keep that around to keep all your fingerprints off of everything. So let's talk about size and weight. On the scale, the laptop alone is about 8.4 pounds. Now if you're a metrics person, it's going to be 3.8 kilograms. And your full travel weight with the power adapters is 13.9 pounds. And again, for the metric folks, that's going to be a total carry weight of 6.3 kilograms. And now here is how it looks when you have it all plugged up. So we do have individual power adapter spots there. So not one of the types where they get merged together into a single connection. We do have two individual connections. You can see outside of the power charging, you do have some connectivity like HDMI and your Ethernet connections here on the back. And as far as the size, let's get some coins in here for scale and a ruler for measurements. You can see the back side of this is close to but not quite 2 inches. And the front side is a little bit over 1.25 inches. So it does have that wedged shape, which makes the back end sit up higher, makes it easier to type on, and it gives you better thermal dynamics for the air getting into the system. So with everything powered up, now we can see our screen come to life and also our keyboard come to life. And this is going to be two really big talking points about this particular laptop. Let's start with our keyboard. This is a mechanical backlit keyboard, so it does have mechanical key switches and not the membrane stuff. The key switches are OMRON mechanical key switches, and this is, I think, the very first laptop that's actually using those, so it makes it the first on the market. The screen is a 240 Hz refresh rate with a 3 millisecond response time screen, so you have a ridiculously high-end screen for those who are into competitive gaming. So the combination of the screen and the keyboard together means that anyone who's into the enthusiast gaming market will really appreciate this laptop. Another thing to keep in mind, while this is not the thinnest and lightest laptop we've reviewed, it does have a very thin bezel around the screen, so that helps prevent it from being oversized. So even though it's a 17-inch screen, it will fit in your bag a little bit closer to an older 15-inch laptop, so it makes it a little bit easier to get around with without losing out on the screen real estate. So the next topic up for discussion is going to be our interfaces and connectivity. We'll go ahead and start over on the left-hand side. Two USB 3.1 Type-C connectors and a USB 3 Type-A connector. Two 3.5mm audio connections. One is going to be for your headphones and one will be for your microphone. Over to the rear, we do actually have connectivity. We mentioned these earlier. That's going to be our HDMI output, our two power inputs, and our RJ45 connectivity for local network connectivity. And both the wired and the wireless are powered by Killer on this particular device. So that's the high-end network equipment you're seeing in some of the more top-end gaming laptops. And now moving to the final side, starting from the left, you're going to have a Thunderbolt 3 Type-C port, your SD card reader, and two more USB 3.1 Type-A connectors. So plenty of connectivity on this device and easy to get to it because they're all placed in pretty strategic places. All right, with that out of the way, one more final spin around so you can see all the interfaces before we go into the system. Your software control panel by Aorus is going to be this particular software. You can see we get a nice heads-up display that gives us statuses and information on the system. And this same control center software is going to be, of course, where we can make a lot of changes, such as application shortcuts, managing the system, changing our keyboard colors, and all those types of things. So if you're big into the RGB thing, then you're probably going to be really happy with this because you can change all the colors for all the lights on the system and make it match your personal preferences. If you're not really big into that, then of course you can just turn those lights off as well and not have to worry about it. Now moving into the next step of evaluation, here is our device manager to show us our currently configured hardware. Most of it we've already mentioned, Killer for both wired and wireless, Core i7-9750H for a CPU, Nvidia RTX 2080 for a GPU. Here's that monitor panel ID if you'd like to look it up. A 1920 by 1080p resolution, but a crazy 240 Hz refresh rate with a also crazy 3 millisecond response time. Now the next section is going to be our performance benchmarks, and before we actually start that, we want to get readings on our temperatures before we push the system. So right now the CPU is low to mid 90s and our GPU is also at the low 90s as far as the Fahrenheit readings. The other baseline benchmark we want to get is our current noise levels. So we have our ambient decibel meter here and we're picking up on the readings from the exhaust. And this is our idle state. So once we start those performance benchmarks, we'll see how these numbers go up. And the very last baseline metric is going to be our external temperatures. So using the infrared camera, we're taking a look around. Right now in the idle state, you can see there's really not a whole lot as far as hot spots or cold spots. It's more or less neutralized. But once we start cranking up the benchmarks, we'll see if there's any hot spots that start to develop. The biggest one would be where your hands are going to sit. You don't want that to get hot. So sweaty palms are no fun. And we also want to see the heat coming out of the system near the exhaust, because that means it's going to keep all that heat from the internal components away. Now, if temperature has become a big concern of yours, you can always go in here and change your fan profiles to make it run at a higher speed, or if noise is a concern, you can always make the fans run slower and quieter. And that's, of course, done through the same software control center that we were in earlier. For the purposes of today's benchmarks, we'll leave it in normal mode so that we get the most standardized testing. So today's benchmarking session will start off with 3D Mark Firestrike. Now, as that's running, we can recheck those noise levels and see that the cooling system definitely has picked up the fan speed and the noise has gone up a little bit. The best way to make any kind of actual use out of these noise numbers is just to watch other videos of similar laptops that we reviewed and see if these numbers are better or worse. Now, temperatures, we can see that everything in the hands area and the keyboard area has remained pretty much the same. We are seeing hot spots develop near the intake and exhaust areas of the laptop. And that's actually a good sign, like we mentioned earlier. That means the heat is being removed from the system. And that means probably when we go back to check the internal temperatures after the benchmarks are done, those components won't get too hot. It's always an exciting day when you can break 20,000 points on Firestrike. So 20,636 was our score. Temperatures, CPU definitely went up, but it stayed under 90 degrees Celsius, which is usually a good point that you want to stay under. The GPU, under 70 degrees Celsius. So the GPU ended up staying very cool during those tests, and that's a really good sign. We are also going to go ahead and kick off Cinebench R15, and we'll come back with those scores in just a moment. So 121.21 frames per second and a 1,277 Cinebench score. And we do have a few graphs here that you can look at as well for some rankings. And for our speaker system, we'll go ahead and blast out some noise and let you see how loud that gets. Well, here we are. Our normal viewers know what this means when we see the bottom of a laptop. This is the last segment of our review, and that's going to be the system disassembly. You can see the really cool design here on the cutouts for the air intake, but they're also very functional. Lots and lots of screws to remove to get that bottom panel off. Keep in mind where those screws came from because they need to go back in the same order. They're not all the same size and length. So first glance of the system, it's a nice little layout here. We have two large cooling fans that pull the air in from the bottom and exhaust it out the back side of the laptop and the sides. The very large battery, that's how we get those 94 watt hours of battery life. A bay where we can have some expanded storage capabilities. So this is an unused storage connector. A little subwoofer speaker just above that. Some system RAM slots that are already occupied. Up above that, we're going to see the large heat pipe array, and this is what's helping keep all those system components nice and cool. And of course, the next step for us is to take those heat pipes off and show you what's underneath of them. So at this point, this would be considered an advanced disassembly. You have your components revealed and no longer protected by the heat pipes and all the other parts. So if you ever do take your system apart, make sure you repaste it and put it back together properly. Otherwise, you could have performance issues, especially with heat. Now you can see there's not really anything under there you need to get to. We just want to show it to you for the sake of the review. And at that point, we're actually now going to be closing off our review. So for our closing remarks, we just want to say we hope you were able to enjoy the Aorus 17 full-length featured review today. Either it was just fun to watch, or if you were actually interested in this particular model and you had some questions, hopefully the review content was able to answer those questions for you. If you still have questions or we didn't quite touch what you needed to know, feel free to go down to the comments section of YouTube and you can ask your question there. We'll answer it for you and anybody else that might have the same question. If you have a personalized question or something you want to ask in confidence, then feel free to contact us by phone or email, and we can get you that one-on-one help that you need. If you are interested in this model in any way, shape, or form, or just want to learn a little bit more about it, feel free to go down to the video description, click on the product page link, and there you can see the full system specs and the current pricing and availability. And that's pretty much all that we've got for you today. So once again, we just want to remind you this was Gen Tech PC, and we'll see you next time.